Hello guys, this is WFM Anna Kucheva, and today we're gonna analyze more model games of the Classical Sicilian Defense. As you guys already know, I published the Chessable and Chess.com course, which is called the Practical Classical Sicilian, and those videos are follow-up of the course to analyze some model games and also talk about the middle game plans. So beside the opening moves and plans, we will know what to also do in the middle games too. Today we're gonna talk about the very common move and the famous move, which is the on the 6th move bishop e3. And I'm pretty sure if you guys play the Classical Sicilian, you're gonna get that move really often. And that's what we're gonna analyze today. Today I bought two of my games. From the time when I was around 14, 15, 16. That time I already had around 2000 FIDE rating points, and I was already playing a lot of Classical Sicilian. I started to play Classical Sicilian since I was probably 13. Yeah. And then, but before I was 13, I was playing Sicilian, but other Sicilians. Like I was playing neither of Sicilian. I was playing Dragon Sicilian, so other Sicilians, but especially the Classical Sicilian. After practicing for a long time with the coach, I started playing when I was 13. And the first game I show you guys, this is the time when I was 15 years old and had a really good experience already playing a lot of Classical Sicilian. And let's get started. So, e4, c5, this is the Sicilian defense, as you guys already know. And knight f3 d6, d4. This is the move of the open Sicilian, and that's the move that we're gonna analyze today. That's a best move technically for white, and most of the chess players are playing exactly this move, open Sicilian move. Black takes, white takes, and knight f6, knight c3, and knight c6. This is exactly the move of the Classical Sicilian. Here is the other moves like Najdorf or Dragon or e6 lines. There's a lot of other moves that black can play, but Classical Sicilian is my favorite. And I was planning for so many years. And when I was thinking about what kind of course to make for the first time, I was like, it has to be Sicilian and the Classical Sicilian because I played so long and I have a very good experience playing it. So let's continue. Bishop e3. That's not a best move the white can offer. Like you guys already know, Rouser and Sozin are the most competitive moves the white can offer, but Bishop e3 is a very common move. I think under 2000, this is the very popular move and everybody's getting the Bishop e3 move. But also when I play the Title Tuesday or Bullet Brawl, like Titles tournament, I get the Bishop e3 there too. So it's not like a only the players who are under 2000 are playing. A lot of titled players are playing too. It's not a best move, but it's one of the good moves white can play. It's not, there's nothing with that move, bad with that move. Okay, so it doesn't matter, guys. It's a Classical Sicilian or what kind of position you have. Bishop goes on e3. First thing you guys should look is the knight g4 move. It's logical, right? First of all, if black can get rid of that bishop, it's pretty good because why not? To have a bishop pair in that position would be nice. And also, like, black tries to double the white's pawns, right? And give them the double isolated pawns in the center, which not sounds bad either. Knight g4, and here's a lot of things the white can play. Bishop g5, bishop b5, and knight c6 are generally the main moves, but in this game my opponent played the bishop b2, the move that I think a lot of players would make, but this is not a good move, right? I think the reason why I brought this game, maybe there is not like a really big high level moves or something, and it's the really normal game, but this game is the very good example how one wrong move in the opening can kind of ruin your position. And that's exactly that move. Now, why bishop e2, which is the absolutely normal move, is ruining the white's position? There's nothing wrong about white letting the black to double their pawns, because after castling, the white gets in advance the f file, so they can try to use the f file. But here's the one problem. And I will tell you what that problem is with bishop e2. But for now, let's keep going. I played e6. By the way, g6 is also a move, but I personally really like e6 and to develop as soon as possible in castle, not waste any time. And plus, I like the idea of this diagonal being closed, so e6 is more my idea. Again, for temporary, it blocks the bishop, but that's only temporary situation. Black's gonna improve that bishop's position later on. So e6 and castle and bishop e7. Why not? Let's develop it. And this is what I was talking about. The fact that bishop is on e2, white cannot lift the queen, which is one of the main ideas in this variation. It's one of the main ideas, guys. So that's how the white tries to take advantage of the f open file, right? Like getting the queen on f3 and maybe also on the g3. Wow, I am so light. Oh, something is wrong with my lighting. Anyways, guys, maybe it's also very bright outside and that's the reason too. So the white can lift the queen like by playing the queen f3, queen g3 and try to attack. And this bishop on e2 is on the way. The white cannot do that. In this position, my opponent played a4, which is a little bit, I'm not sure about this move. First of all, I never played a6 to begin with, to try b5 push, because a lot of times when the black plays a6 and tries to push the b5, white is playing the a4 move, right? Another thing is sometimes with a4, white has an interesting rook lift idea in the Sicilian positions. I don't know, guys, how often you see that, because that's a very rare variation. Where the white can lift the rook, but that's also not a case here because of the e3 pawn. It's on the way. So if the white wants to lift the rook like that, that's gonna be a problem because this pawn is on the way. So that's why I never played a6 preparing this. So yeah, and it's also weakens b4 square. It's not like it not brings you any problems. It weakens the b4 square. I played castle, and this is exactly what I was talking about. They don't have queen f3, queen g3, and some attacking ideas, right? Meanwhile, they have a double isolated pawn, open f file, but white is not really taking any advantage of it. In addition to that, I have a very nice outpost square for my knight, which I'm gonna use for sure. Or I'm not used in this game. Let's see. Queen d2 and a6, like I'm slowly improving. I know what my plan is, like a6, bishop d7, rook c8. I can try to push b5, or like, let me show you guys. So bishop d7 and then h3. My opponent is kind of waiting. I think the fact that my opponent already set up the thing as the pieces the wrong way, right? So sometimes, guys, when you get yourself in the middle game position and you're like, okay, what's my plan now? It's not just because that player not knows the middle game plan. Sometimes it's because they made some mistakes in opening, placing the pieces on the right spot. And this is the consequences. I try to avoid saying that word. I always said it correctly. Consequences? Yeah, that's one of the toughest, hardest word for me to say in English. So yeah, this is the whole setup is already wrong. What the queen is doing here, what the bishop is doing, and it's very hard for them to find a plan, right? And meanwhile, guys, one more time, I'm setting up my pieces. By the way, with a6, someone can ask me, why a6 when you can't even push a5? Sorry, b5. a6 is not just for the b5. a6 also controls the knight b5, so they can't jump and they can't target my pawn, right, on d6. So a6 is not just for the b5 preparation, it's also to control on the b5 square. I played rook c8 and then bishop d3 and queen b6. Why not? Diagonal is weak, b2 pawn is weak, everything is good. Knight goes on b3 to cover the pawn and bishop g5. Well, end of the day, those are the double isolated pawns and I'm trying to attack them. Okay, here guys, I will give you a little bit of time. What's the next plan for black? Again, nothing fancy. It's not like a tactic or something. Just what would you guys play in this position? Because I think the move I played here is very, very interesting. And this move can be played in a lot of other Sicilian positions too. So I'm going to give you guys 5 seconds on this and try to think about the move. Black to move. Okay, I played guys knight a5. So generally speaking, knight a5, knight c4, or knight e5, knight c4, they're nothing new, right? That's knight jumps on the c4 pretty often. That's the whole. I will go a little bit back, guys. Why I played rook c8. I was planning to jump on c4 because this idea of the rook c8 followed by knight a5, knight c4, or knight e5, knight c4. That c4 is the very good square for the knight to use and to especially to force opponent to trade the bishop for it. But in this position, knight a5 has another idea too. Not only I'm trying to get there, I'm also trying to get this knight. Now, the question is, this knight looks pretty bad. It's not even that good of the knight. So why I'm trading my good knight for that knight? B3 knight is not that strong, but it actually protects the queen side pretty well. So trading this, check this out, guys. Now, this is weaker, and this is weaker. Right, my opponent played rook a1 to guard this because they can't even play b3 because the c3 knight is hanging. And after rook a1, I played queen b4. So that knight on b3 was maybe not doing much, but that was a good defender. After white pawn disappeared from the b3 square, pawns are weak, and I can attack them. Queen b4, rook goes on a2, protects them, bishop c6, like those pawns are double isolated pawn. And you see, guys, what happened? Like, white maybe opened a file, but they could not create anything on the f file. And if the white can't really take advantage of the f file, then they're only left with the isolated double pawns, right? Queen c5, putting more pressure here. And not only, I think I was also planning to get my queen on this side, and I played f5. Okay? Now, I'm trying to open things. I have a 2 bishops, right? Even if you guys see, I'm trading the double isolated pawn, and someone can think, oh, why you're trading isolated pawn? But this way, I opened e file, and on the next one, I'll open f file, and I'm just opening everything. That's what you do when you have a bishops, right? Imagine, guys, only pieces I have is the long range pieces. 2 bishops, 2 rooks, and queen. Of course, I want to open everything, right? Especially my pieces are much better coordinated than the white pieces. Oh, wow, a lot of arrows. Looks like a Hikaru's board. But I'm not Hikaru. But I'm not Hikaru. Okay, knight goes on d1. Well, that's a very passive move, guys. But what white can do, they don't have no plans. And this pawn needs the defense. Well, I'm attacking with everything I have. And after b3, which is, I don't know, normal move, f4, of course f4. Oh, by the way, white cannot take because of the rook e1, it's pinned. That's what happens when the rooks are not connected. When the rooks are not connected, things goes wrong on the back rank. My opponent pushed e4, and of course I don't want to trade. By the way, guys, if I trade, I still have a better endgame because of my better pieces and bishop pair, but no. After f3, there's a very good possibility to attack. And c3 is, by the way, good move. Maybe white tries to get the rook in the game, and I played f3, which is, I think, game-changing move here. White decided to take, and bishop f4. That's a nice outpost square, right? Outpost square is the square where you can place your piece, and opponent cannot kick you away with a pawn, right? And not only my bishop is very strong on the outpost square, it also creates the area for me to use my queen, right? Or lift my rook, or lift both of my rooks. But after king h8, I don't want to get pinned. Opponent played rook f1. Oh, by the way, bishop g3 was also the move. So bishop f4 is a tempo move too. I lift my rook. Of course, I'm not trading the queens. And here's the tricky part. I played king h8 prophylactical move. Here's the thing, guys. If I take on h3, it's queen f6. By the way, I'm not losing the rook because I can get rid of their rook and take the queen. But again, I don't want to trade the queens. This is absolutely better position for black. But why? With my queen on the board, I can finish the game much faster. So instead of taking on h3, I just made the prophylactic move to get rid of all the problems. Took on h3, threatening the checkmate. Bishop d7 because this rook position is very bad. And after rook h6, my opponent resigned because it's very difficult to stop the checkmate, and even if the white stops the checkmate, they lose the blah material. So my opponent resigned, right? So, like I said, this is not like a super high level game or something. It's just like, I think it's not example how you can punish the opponent for the early mistakes they made in the game. Like I said, this is the game which is I played on the Georgian Championship when I was a girl. And yeah, I think overall it was not a bad game with ideas of like doubling opponents' pawns. I think this, I will go back. Like, you guys see this bishop e2 move ended up being even worse than it looks, right? Like, it's kind of like white had no clear plan from there, and they were just left with the weaknesses, and it's kind of went pretty bad for them. The second game I show you guys, it's also, I'm around 15, 16 in this game too. This is also playing in the Girls Championship in Georgia here. Those games are not in the base, but I have them saved in my own base on my games base, in the chess base. So here we go. Absolutely same starts, guys. It's exact same Open Sicilian and exact same Classical Sicilian. And exact same bishop b3 followed by knight g4. Again, one more time, guys. It's Sicilian, it's Sicilian, and Classical Sicilian or other Sicilian. Like dragon, in the dragon, there's also the idea with the knight g4, right? Generally speaking, white bishop goes on e3, keep an eye on the knight g4. It doesn't mean the knight g4 always works, but most of the times it does work. It does work. So this time my opponent traded this, right? I take back. By the way, there's also the line, like this line, which, oh, sorry guys, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't play that. I prefer to take with here. And then my opponent played queen d2. So here's the thing. This knight on g4 is not just to double the white post. It's also there to just trade a knight for the bishop. And if you guys are enjoying having the bishop pair, then why not? You can get this. When I mention the bishop pair, I always remember one of my students. He always mentions like everybody is talking about bishop pair, bishop pair, bishop pair, but how do you use the bishop pair? So that's true. Like, you should also know some ways to use it, right? Generally speaking, it's pretty easy. You're just targeting your opponent pieces, you're trying to open the lines, and you try to get yourself a pass pawn, right? I'm talking about the endgame bishop pair positions. But maybe that's also the topic to make one video about, right? The bishop pair, because everybody says, oh, bishop pair this, bishop pair that, but end of the day, there is the question, what is the bishop pair and how you use it, right? And how you use them. Okay, in this position, I played queen b6. So this is absolutely not necessary. You guys can play g6, e6, and develop the other way. But I personally am a very big fan of the endgame. So I like the idea of bishop b6. And I like the idea of opening this, having the bishop pair and an endgame position. So if you're like me into endgames, then you can do this. Bishop d3, g6. So here, yeah, why not? If I can develop the bishop from there and I'm not getting the crazy dragon variation, why not? I'll go for it. We are just both developing and my opponent played d4. Okay, here's the question. Take on c3 or not to take on c3? That's most of the times the very big question in the positions like this, right? Take it or you not take it. I think in this position specifically, and in most of the positions too, it's okay to play either way. You can either take or you can either not take. I think the both way, it's okay, right? But probably it depends more on the taste, like which one you like. Like, you like to take it or you like to not take it. So I'm a very endgame person. And in the endgame, you guys know how much difference the pawn structure can make. That's why I took it. But if you guys not take it and just play with the bishop pair, that's pretty good too. I took him, pawn and took. And in this position, guys, I think I played a very nice move, right? Like, again, I don't want to brag, but the reason I brought this game is I think I played endgame pretty well. So let me guys show you. Queen d8 was played by me and white. This is already endgame. I don't need to castle. right? You don't have to hide your king anymore. And why not? Let's pick the king d8, and the c7 looks like a very safe square for the king. Plus, in the end game, we are trying to more activate the king, so you don't have to hide it anymore. You're doing opposite. You're activating your king, right? I think this is the very good idea to activate the king on the c7 square. Rook b1, king b6, activating, guarding, protecting, everything. What a nice square it is for it. Developed by this. By the way, bishop d7, from now when I'm looking at this, I'm like, why am I not went on? Maybe I was like kind of afraid a little bit on f5. I don't know, maybe this is better. But okay, I played bishop d7. It's like a 16-year-old version of me. So that time probably I preferred bishop on d7, but I don't know, maybe bishop e6 is pretty good too. Yeah. Anyways, bishop d7, and well, opponent has the obvious weaknesses, and I have a semi-open file, so rook a5 followed by another rook and doubling the rook to attack the isolated pawn. Why not? My opponent protects, I attack it, and c4. h5. Well, this is the very common structure in the endgame, like to keep a nice pawn chain, so all the pawns are protecting each other, right? It's why not? Normal, nice thing to do. H3 and rook h3. Yeah, I think now I'm maybe considering some stuff there, like maybe he's this and this, and or maybe this and this. Like this is something that I need to target on, right? Those are the weak pawns. King d4, opponent activates. I don't know, guys. I'm not sure about the king d4 because it looks like an awkward place for the king to be on. I think so. Bishop b6, targeting this, and yeah, I think my opponent just got tired of playing this. My plan was this and this, followed by rook a4, followed by b5, and I'm pretty sure the white would lose that pawn either way. Like, how are you guys gonna stop this? Like rook a4, followed by b5 because it's pins. But my opponent decided, okay, you know what, just have my pawn, but let me get out of this, right? But the problem is they lose the pawn, but they don't get out of this because the opponent played rook c3, which is like a very passive move, right? It's like almost like it does nothing. I played rook a4, pinning this, and then rook a5. Maybe rook c5 is the idea, right? Yeah, that's why I played it. Followed by rook c5 to use the spin and try b5. That's another problem of the weak pawn. So when you are defending the weak pawn, not only you are making your piece passive, a lot of times you are ended up in the pinned position. You guys paid attention on that? That a lot of times when someone is guarding the weak pawn, they're also pinned on that pawn too, right? It can be vertical, horizontal, diagonal pins, right? My opponent pushed g4, I take, and after b5, this pawn is gone. Rook a3 makes sense, opponent tries to attack, I take, trade the bishops, because like having the 2 extra pawn in the rook's endgame is really nice. By the way, guys, just 1 extra pawn in the rook's endgame, not that much. There's so many theoretical positions where the player can make a draw, right? So that's why if you have 2 extra pawns, go for it. But if you only have 1 extra pawn in the rook's endgame, first make sure it's winning, because there's a lot of theoretical draw rook's endgame with just an extra pawn. My opponent checked, and endgame is all about activity of the pieces and pass pawns, right? So I could go on d8, right? But I'm like, you know what? Just have my pawn. I want my king to be active. I don't want to place my king here and be in cut or make another checks on it. I just moved it on b6, let my opponent to have it. And another really good move here, taking this is also an option, but why to take it right away when I can make in between check first, force the opponent king on the second ring, and then take the pawn and make a check. So it's like forcing the king on the second ring, take that pawn with the check, and then play the rook g2 and attacking some other unguarded pawn. My opponent captured here, I captured there, and they also create the pass pawn, and same, I could push this, I can push that and that, but king c5, right? Don't forget, guys, you can push the pawn later too, but sometimes when we push the pawns like too much and our pieces are not well activated and well placed, it's gonna be a problem, right? So activate your pieces first, prepare your pawn pushes better, and push your pawns afterwards, because pawn is the only piece which not moves back, right? So if you wrongly push your pawn, you can't take it back anymore. That's it, it's pushed. My opponent played rook f6, backing here and there. Yeah, e6, and after king d6, no, sorry, not king d6, king d5. Played king d5, more active way. My opponent resigned. So why resigned after rook e5? That pawn is gone. And by the way, king d6 was winning too, but I played king d5. And here's the one interesting moment, that after e7 I had this and black is still winning because that pawn is gone again. Like, that pawn never goes anywhere. But here's the really good thing, right? If the pawn was not on g6, opponent could have this pin and I could lose the game. Because I can take the pawn, and if I take this, promote, right? But this pawn takes, so that's not a problem. So that's why, one more time, after king d5, my opponent resigned because it's lost. After e7, there is this, and that pawn is gone. That pawn is gone. There. Like, you guys know how strong the rook is behind the pass pawn, right? It doesn't matter. It's your own pass pawn or it's opponent's pass pawn. Rook should be always behind the pass pawn. Behind the pass pawn. Your pass pawn or opponent's pass pawn. Okay, guys, those are the two of my games that I showed you guys today. I know they're not like a super high quality or something, but I think they're very interesting. In the normal games, like, not every game is the Grandmaster games, right? Like, not all of us are Grandmasters, so if the opponents are making a mistake, we should know how to punish them. And in Grandmaster games, sometimes everything is like so high level, it's even hard to understand what they are doing. So I think once in a while to analyze this kind of games, it's pretty useful too. Thanks, guys, for joining and watching. And down below, I will write down the link of the Classical Sicilian course, which is available on the chess.com or the Chessable. And thank you guys for watching. Have all of you the wonderful week. Bye. Bye.